this is Mark Moss, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grandmas and grandpas. He has been in this space about 3 times longer than I have. He knows absolutely everybody. He's been a voice of reason, logic, explaining. I mean, I think the work Mark's done on really helping explain economics and finance at a global level. For me, one of the great benefits of Bitcoin is it's really educating a lot of people. You cannot get into this space if you're more than an amateur and not begin to differentiate Bitcoin from everything else. And therefore it forces you to learn the truth about what I call the old world order, the analog age of humanity, which is pencils, which I still value my pencils in my writing, but they're for me. They're not for you and I to, it becomes really problematic if I start wanting to move books with Mark back and forth. It slows everything down. Look at what we're doing right now. We have digitized this experience. I can now send them a little love note without even, putting a stamp on it. So our world is changing, and I really appreciate you being on this planet, Mark, at the point in time that you're here. I'm assuming your agendas are good. You seem like a good man, but I really appreciate all the work you've done in this space, really being a pioneer.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot because it's lonely.
Yeah, and I started with Bitcoin. It was like 2015 when I finally made the big jump, and I came in it from like this freedom mindset where I was actively trying. I was still shell shocked from 2008. I still thought the banks were going to collapse because the banks haven't gotten better. They've only gotten worse since 2008. And so, this PTSD, fighting the last war, whatever you want to call it. And I was actively trying to build this flag theory where I would have multiple kind of countries and bank accounts in countries. And I was actively working with an attorney in Panama, set up a trust down there, get a bank account going down there, work on residency, et cetera. And that's when Bitcoin came across. The first time I looked at it was like 2013 as it was running up, and then it crashed. And then 2015, I looked at it again. I'm like, oh, this is the same thing I'm trying to do, get money out of the bank. But once I kind of dug in, I was like, oh, we have a tool to win now. This is much more than just getting money out of the bank. And so I started screaming it from the mountaintops. I got to tell everybody I know about it. I did go down the crypto rabbit hole. I did go into it's blockchain, not Bitcoin thing. So, I'm not shy about saying that. And for about 4 years, I wrote a cryptocurrency research newsletter where I put out like 20 pages of research every single month on every crypto project, decentralized exchanges and privacy coins and, all these different things. And then after about 4 years publishing, 1,000 pages of research, I was like, that's all kind of smoke and mirrors. I'm just going to focus on Bitcoin. And so
hey, can I ask a question there? I'd like to actually ask 2 questions. If I can remember the first one, I'll come back to it. But it's really about your background. Like when you were a kid, like I'm really interested in what drives some people into this space. It must be something about our childhood, because here I am, a twin brother. I've been studying this space since 2016. Got a twin brother. Like, what the hell are y'all talking about? For me, this was so natural. I had to take a break for 3 or 4 years because I had another business that really consumed a tremendous amount of time. But what do you think is in your background that kind of gave you this pioneering spirit of freedom? And I mean, everybody went through 2008, but you took it as almost a wound, like you got hit by a weapon and you're like, okay, I'm going to come back from this and fix it. What do you think's in your background to drive that?
Well, I think everybody has different things in their background that drive it. But for me personally, after 2008, I had made a bunch of money, 2 successful exits, Fortune 500 exit, medical equipment company, a tech company. I developed a bunch of real estate, fixed and flipped 100 properties, developed real estate from the ground up, multiple 8 figures of real estate, but then got just whacked in 2008. And I realized it's because I don't understand this financial system. I was like pretty good at making money in business, but there's something bigger that has control over my life that I wasn't aware of, the Federal Reserve, the monetary policy, et cetera. And I'm like, I need to go figure that out. And I became a gold bug. I just figured, oh shoot, it's this fiat money system that's killing everything. And so it was Ron Paul in the Fed back, was that 2008, 2009, Mike Maloney, et cetera. And so I became a gold bug, and I'm like, okay, we got to go back to a sound money system. And it wasn't really until Bitcoin where I was like, I'm not a gold bug, I'm a sound money advocate. That's the thing. And so I think it was, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. And so, having that massive amount of pain, realizing, shoot, I'm pretty good at understanding money, making money, creating wealth, if you will. But if I don't understand this power that has control over my whole life, then I can't be successful. At least that's what caused problems for me before. So I need to understand this. And then, like I said, I became that. The other piece I would say is sort of, and in one of my newsletters, I call Bitcoin the great bait and switch. People come to it for the number go up technology, the NGU, and they stay for the freedom.
Yeah.
And so, originally it was like, oh, banking system, let me get money into the bank. But I have this strong, in my background, this strong, I guess, drive for freedom. And I think a lot of that comes from growing up as a kid in South Texas. My parents were, conservatives, grassroots, involved in the grassroots political system. We still talk politics at the Thanksgiving dinner a couple of weeks ago. And so sort of growing up, my dad's a Vietnam vet, flew jets in the Air Force. My grandfather's, World War II vet. And I thought I would just be a vet one day. And so I think it's, that's part of the background. That's like the freedom side of things. I grew up under the Cold War, that was still a thing, and they, schools taught us what happened in East and West Berlin, and they taught us what communism in Russia was like. And so I guess I'm a little bit old enough to have remembered that. So I think that drives like the strong freedom piece. And then there's the economic piece. And I think those two things come together. I think everybody comes to Bitcoin in different places. And so there's certainly the technical nerds that want to talk about, the intricacies of the hash rate or the SHA-256 or the way the nodes work and all those different things. And we need that. For me, it was just more about the economics and the freedom side. And so that's kind of the intersection of Bitcoin in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. When you mentioned Texas, I'm like, I think some of this is about good old basic economics, right? You probably got crushed in 2008 because you did what other people did, which is, hey, let's take some leverage out. And then one day you wake up and it's all gone, like just dry as dry could possibly be. You realize the power of liquidity. When you don't have it, there is no power.
And I was in Southern California. And so this building that I'm recording out of right here, for example, I built this. It's a mixed unit building, subterranean parking garage. I bought the lot, dug it out, built it up. I had this building for sale for $12 million. I lost it. It went back to the bank. I'm renting from them now. But it went back to the bank, and I had it for sale for 12. I turned an offer down at 11, and they sold it for 4 inside of 12 months.
We're gonna see a lot of that in the next 24 months, dude. The next 18 to 24 months, we're gonna see a lot of commercial real estate. I mean, my brother just picked one up in Chicago. I think it's a multi-dwelling. Last buyer was at 280. He picked it up at 150. That was less than 24 months ago.
Wow.
So anybody that bought anything in 21 is underwater, including those people in our industry. I mean, there are a lot of large companies that raised extreme valuations, some that compete with my Node 40 business. I mean, like TaxBit raised at $1.7 billion. How do they ever get their management back in money, dude? Like their management never comes back into the money. I've seen this happen so many times with equity plays. Anyway, not to distract, but on the crypto comment, because I see you as and don't take this wrong, but I see you as like a real Bitcoiner. Like, hey man, this is the deal.
Yeah.
I was surprised when you said, hey, I used to do thousands of pages of research on other, what I call the 7-Eleven token business or the lottery ticket, which I'm not saying some of those may not work. They may work. Okay. I just don't have a clue who's going to work, not work. I know what Bitcoin function. Was it with doing all that investigation? Because I have played around with some of these coins. I find that to be really useful for me. Now, I'm not playing around with tens of millions of dollars. Okay.
Right.
I'm also not playing around with $12, but I've learned a lot of really cool things about Bitcoin by being in some of the other protocols, if that's the right word for it. Did you learn a lot from just slagging around the toilet bowl where there might be a few gems, but most of it's just the toilet bowl?
Well, I think a couple things. One, so I mean,
An
I
overly
started.
harsh way to put it, by the way, the toilet bowl. It
I
has
mean,
got flexed out.
I suppose that's one way to say it, but a lot of people would say, "But Mark, what do you mean? XYZ, Cardano, whatever, polka dots, a scam. Look how much money I've made." And I just say, "Well, we're not here for the same reason, right? We're not all about making money. Sure, we can go gamble in Vegas and look how much money we made. I mean, people make money in Ponzi's too. It doesn't mean they're legit, right? And so we're just doing different things here. But what I would say is that one, like I said, I have exits in tech. I've been a tech guy. I've been on the internet since the early days. And so I was just, interested. And I think going back to that time, 2015, we just didn't know. I mean, I didn't know that the difference of Bitcoin versus the other cryptocurrencies. I hadn't learned that yet. We didn't know which layer one would be the one that would reign supreme, and it was sort of like the early days. It reminded me of the mid late '90s and the internet, where we didn't know, was it going to be Netscape or was it going to be AOL, and we had all these different people in there. It's the beta versus VHS for those that are old enough, or laser versus Blu-ray or whatever, right? It's like we have competing technologies. And so I think that was part of it. I was really interested in, like I said, some of these the decentralization aspects. So like decentralized exchanges, for example, and privacy coins. Like I'm a privacy advocate as a freedom advocate. So those things attracted me. But it was through the process of investigation that I realized, oh, wait a minute, none of this is doing what we're actually here for. And so what I believe that the revolution of Bitcoin is decentralization.
Mm.
And so it's decentralization. Now, blockchain is just a slow, inefficient database. Why the heck would we want a slow, inefficient database? Well, only if we have trade-offs somewhere else, like decentralization. Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, laid it out back in like 2015, 16, what he called the trilemma. In order to get more of one, you have to give up more of the other. And so you have decentralization, you have security, and you have speed. And so in order to get more speed, you have to give up more of decentralization. And since Bitcoin is the most decentralized, nobody else can be more decentralized. So they all have to be something else. But the problem is we didn't need faster money. That's not a problem that's going to save the world. The world doesn't need faster money. The world needs sound money. It needs censorship resistant transactions. That's what the world needs. We need decentralization. We need finite amounts. We need money that can't be corrupted by humans. We need money that can't be censored. That's what the world needs right now. And I believe that problems come to solutions. I'm sorry, solutions come to problems. And so we have problems right now. We have endless amount of money printing. We have governments that create their money that requires permission, which leaves right now today about 2 billion adults in the world without access to the financial system. We have countries like in Afghanistan, the Taliban controls the banking system. People can't move money. North Korea, we have massive censorship, and those are really, really, really big problems that are affecting human flourishment, if you will. And so we need a solution for that, and that's what Bitcoin brings. Faster money wasn't that. DeFi isn't that, right? And so that's why I just said those people, they're making more US dollars. Oh, look how much money I'm making. That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah. Do you think you would be here if Bitcoin was $12 and there was need to be made?
Well, like I said, the bait and switch, right? So we come for the number go up and then we stay for the Bitcoin, for the freedom. But I would say, like let's say when Bitcoin fell off its high of, whatever, 69,000 and dropped down to whatever, 15, 16K, let's say, for example. Well, Facebook also dropped by 75%, but yet the Facebook network still worked perfectly. And Bitcoin's price, US dollar valuation, dropped from 69 to 16, but the Bitcoin network still worked perfectly. All the attributes of what we need, fixed supply, censorship resistant, immutable transactions, all of that still worked perfectly. So would we still be here? Probably, maybe.
Yeah, no, I was just, I think look, I came to Bitcoin because I was investing in gold. I was investing in silver. I was buying ammo. I was buying guns. I was buying water and food. I made all those purchases. Like I actually believe, hey, don't buy Bitcoin until you have your family taken care of. Get off of debt. Like, you have to get rid of debt. There's no sense in you paying Bank of America 22% for $6,600. Like that's $6,600. Everybody's paying the credit card companies over $1.7 trillion a year in debt. That has to go away. You can't go buy Bitcoin before that. But I actually came to Bitcoin because of freedom.
Yeah.
Because I was tired. I mean, I was old enough to realize, hey, this is a talk about a Ponzi scheme. The whole government process is a Ponzi scheme. And
But
I was,
you also come from the payment space, right?
well, I come from energy and payments, and I was looking at the energy, like the energy space. I spent 20 years in energy. It is extremely inefficient. Okay.
Right.
Massively inefficient. 20% of all fossil fuel just leaks everywhere. And that's why I've had a really bizarre view on how mining works. If Marathon and Riot get bought at one point, I suspect they'll be bought by energy companies.
Yeah.
Or they'll be competing with energy companies. And I think the guy that's going to win the mining game is going to be the zero input guy, like zero cost. My view is in 3 years, zero cost for energy will go into producing Bitcoin. They will be the most successful miners on the planet, and they'll do it at scale.
What about do you think in this I kind of agree with you, right? So you have to be vertically integrated, right? So from the power source all the way through. And do you think, looking at the energy space now, inefficient it is, having to run peaker plants and things like that just for backup, do you think that I kind of think that potentially they'll be mining Bitcoin at a loss because they're already losing money on peaker plants, for example? Why not just lose less?
I don't think peaker plants are going to be the place. I think right now people are moving to play what are those particular miners doing? They're not really mining Bitcoin. They're arbitraging the energy value chain.
Right.
Turn off Bitcoin to make a penny. They're arbitragers. They have nothing really to do with the Bitcoin ecosphere other than they're going to chase demand. What if a nuclear power station decides that they no longer have to be a base load supplier to the electric grid? They can offer 16-hour energy to a power company, to a utility, instead of selling it for 3 cents a kilowatt. They're the lowest seller in the market. They no longer sell 24/7. They sell 18 by 5. And other hours, they're mining Bitcoin. See, I think that's where the ARB comes, because they only can improve the efficiency of that nuclear power station. Nukes cannot be turned off. So when we begin to really understand, like, I thought initially it might be like decommissioned nuclear power stations or submarines. This is going to be baseload players. I finally woke up one day. I'm like, what is the biggest problem for a nuke? It has to sell baseload, and people hate buying baseload. What about Putin, right? Putin just got his pipelines blown up 2 years ago. We've completely forgot that. I think it was a total act of terrorism, whoever did it, unless they were smoking a cigarette in a rowboat and it all just blew up 90 meters below. But if you're Putin and you have to transport natural gas 3,000 miles, why wouldn't you just put data centers up in the middle of the Poinoi River, frozen, cold, perfect environment for a data center? He now has no one to ask for permission to move his decatherms into a country. That's powerful, man. So I think the sovereigns are going to be really large producers of it's a myth that the top 10 oil producers today have a name. Most people go ExxonMobil, BP. No, dude, sovereigns: Russia, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, America.
The U.S.
Yeah, America's really screwing up. We could have a real play here on Bitcoin, dude. Like, if I was in the CIA, I would be buying this stuff in the Treasury Department.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got off topic a little bit on the mining piece. I think it's a hard business. Like, for me, you've been doing this a long time. Just while we're on that, I have a theory that says most people who have mined Bitcoin up to this point probably would have been better off, except for maybe the last few months, just to buy the Bitcoin. Like it's been a better return on investment to buy the coin versus locking up the capital, having big teams of people, human error, mining, cash delays, and volatility. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that so far?
Well, I have put my foot into mining quite a bit through my Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. We're in a couple mining plays, but through the last 6-7 years, I've put my own money into multiple mining plays. And to your point, yes, I would have personally been much better if I would have just held onto the Bitcoin 100%. The thing I would say about that, though, Gary, is that you have to understand that in the pitch deck for the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, I sort of have a slide where I show like a barrel of oil, and oil is the commodity. But then the next slide is all the things around the oil industry. What about the head for the new drill rig? What about the new horizontal drilling software? What about the oil rig that drills 3,000 feet below? What about the ship that transports the oil with the sonar and the radar? What about the oil pipelines? What about the pressure transfer tanks? Like there's trillions, and not trillions, but I don't know, maybe trillions, millions of technologies and companies around oil. So oil being the commodity, but all that stuff. And so Bitcoin is a commodity, but Bitcoin needs that entire ecosystem built out, right? And so the point that I want to get to, though, is that about every 50 years, for the last 300 years, about every 50 years, we have a technological revolution, the K-wave cycle. And a technological revolution is when a new technology comes, a new set of building blocks, and you sort of have this paradigm shift. It's a cluster of technologies. And you go through two distinct phases in this technological revolution. Just real quick for your listeners, we had in the late 1700s was the Industrial Revolution. Then we had the age of steam engines and railways. Then we had the age of steel, electricity, and heavy equipment. Then 1908, we had oil fuels, automobiles, and mass production. 1971, we had the age of the microprocessor, which brought us personal computers, the internet, telecom, et cetera. And now we're witnessing the next technological revolution right now, which is decentralization, as I call it. What's important to understand is these periods, they go through two distinct phases within that 50-year cycle. And really the first 40 years, there's two 20-year phases. And the first, and they require two different types of capital. And the first phase requires what's called financial capital. The next phase is production capital. Financial capital is speculative. And so, for people to understand how real easy, in 1908, we had oil fuels, mass production, and the automobile. It wasn't just the automobile. It was the fact that we had the oil and we had the ability to get oil out of the U.S. and turn it into gas and all that. But Henry Ford created that Model T. Cool. So I have it in my front yard. That's cool, except for there ain't no roads and there ain't no gas stations and there ain't no tire manufacturers. So what good does a car do me if I have no service for it, no parts, et cetera? So somebody had to go build those gas stations, but there was no cars to come to the gas stations. So somebody had to speculate on this future, which means they're losing money to build for the future. And so I would say back to the Bitcoin mining, would you have been better to buy Bitcoin? You probably would have, but somebody has to speculate. Somebody has to be willing to spend money without an immediate return. They have to be willing to invest into miners, even though it may not be as profitable as Bitcoin in the beginning, because how else does this get built out?
Yeah, look, everybody has a different risk, right? There are some people that don't want to do what I do, but they want to build machines and they're engineers. I mean, what guys that drill holes in the ground do, right? Like old boss of mine told me once, the price was going from 70 to 30. We were in a monster bear market. We went from 23,000 oil producers in 1989 to now less than 300, I think.
Yeah.
That'll go to 30. I think you'll see the same thing with banks. We're going to go to super, super, super big.
Yeah.
Because margins are going to collapse. That's why. See, margin is technology, all the technological windows you just took us through, it compresses margins. Transparency compresses margins, and it should increase volumes. And most legacy players, my complaint about them is they want to make margins for doing very little or taking very little risk. And I think we're in the era now of you will be paid for being efficient, and you will get clocked for being inefficient. And the problem is you have to have a digital world to be able to measure all of that. Like you and I are going to begin to understand the measurement and calculation and what kind of energy did you and I create through this exchange. This is a valuable exchange, dude. We're literally creating schools, I think.
Yeah.
And some Ponzi schemes too. But my intention, I think your intention, is to help. By the way, we're racing through 43.7 right this second.
What? Oh my gosh.
Bro, it hit 44. Like this thing has no, I have been doing this my whole life, Mark. I have never seen a market like this in my entire life, ever. And I've been in 3 markets where the market started when I showed up to work. I mean, like these markets are really fascinating if you've been in them. This thing, dude, I have never seen anything like this. I talk about FOMO.
Yeah, I know, right? You never own enough when it starts running like this.
Yeah, but see, now these guys right now, I think the miners are doing really well. And this was the only point I was trying to make was, I don't think you have to have a lot of capital to get into this market. See, that's where I was headed. Just because somebody went into mining, I think the guys 15, 12 years ago went into mining, they were in their mom's basement or whatever. They weren't paying for the electricity, man.
Right.
They're stealing the electricity. And that's cool. Okay. They're pirates. That's how the markets are built. But I don't see Bitcoin being produced in the middle of Texas, dude. Okay. For swings in the power market, I got it. But they're not Bitcoiners. They are arbitraging the power grid. And I'm not sure why I would put a bunch of mining facilities in here when I can. Right now, they're making good money, but at $25,000, it was much better just to buy the bloody coin and hold it. And I think that's what I'm sure Michael Saylor's gone through that exercise. Hey,
well, I can tell you, I mean, I work with a couple of companies through the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, but I mean, just Riot, talking about Riot, for example, they're a publicly traded company. You can look at their statements. I mean, when Bitcoin was 25,000, they were producing Bitcoin for 9,
including capital.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at their publicly released financials. So they were in Q1 and Q2 of this year, they were creating Bitcoin for sub 9. So not only are they getting, to your point, Gary, not only are they getting the appreciation of the Bitcoin. So would I be better just holding Bitcoin? They are. Except for everyone else bought it for 20 and held, they got it for 9 and held. So they are getting the appreciation on the Bitcoin like everybody else, but they are better off holding because they're holding. Most of these publicly traded companies, Fred Thiel from Marathon, the largest publicly traded, I had dinner with him in Texas, and they're not selling. They're holding the Bitcoin on their books. So they're getting the appreciation of the Bitcoin, just like you were saying, you're better off doing that, but they're getting it for a fraction of the price of everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is why you see the miners go up typically, a 3x on what the price of Bitcoin will do.
Yeah. Now, will you participate in that part of the ecosphere? Will you take your own risk capital and move it into miners? Is that part of your? Well, you have done that through the Opportunity Fund. How silly of me to ask a dumb question.
Yeah, so we are doing that through the Opportunity Fund. Like I said, I've done through the years, I've done a lot of it just personally, and it hasn't all worked out. Through the Opportunity Fund, we've got with some really, really good operators, and so I feel pretty good about it. I think, kind of going back to the gold bug kind of a thing, I own a little bit of gold. The percentage of gold that I have to Bitcoin is very small, but I like to play in like the resource mining space. So I still mess around with some gold and silver producers, nickel, lithium, uranium producers, et cetera, explorers, let's call it, just because they're super explosive. And I think, sort of like the gold miner, you kind of have the Bitcoin miner sort of thing. So I do like the Bitcoin mining space. My exposure personally is through the fund though.
Yeah, right. You want to talk about the fund a little bit? I don't know that we had a plan to do that, but you're welcome to maybe talk about what the fund is, what it's designed to do, kind of who's in it, and what people are trying to do. Because I know you spend a good bit of time in it, right?
Yeah. Happy to plug it. We haven't closed the first fund yet, so we're still open. I think we're going to close it here at the end of this month. So fund 1 will be closed, but basically, to the kind of point that you're saying, a lot of times people are better off buying Bitcoin. So for people that say, but shouldn't I just buy Bitcoin? Yes. you should certainly buy Bitcoin first. Sort of like you were saying, you should pay off all your debt first. You should certainly buy Bitcoin first. Yes. Then what? Well, then you can also play Bitcoin through public equities. So obviously a MicroStrategy could be a proxy on that. GBTC, Bitcoin miners, those are proxies in a public equity space. Then there's venture capital, VC money, and that's long only, 7 to 10 year lockup, long only, high risk, maybe, hopefully high reward, but high risk and long duration of lockup. And so you should maybe play in some VC space. Me and the partners in the fund, we invest in VCs as well. I'm an advisor for Trammell Venture Partners, TVP. It's probably the largest VC company in Bitcoin. Then there's us. So you should certainly buy Bitcoin. You may want to play in equities, and VC, we do VC as well. We're different. We're something else. And so we're the opportunity fund, which means we can access the entire ecosystem, not just early stage VC, not just 7 to 10 year lockup. So what our goal is not to outperform any of these VCs or outperform Bitcoin. Our goal is to provide a better risk adjusted return. And so, Warren Buffett says the most important rule of investing is don't lose money. Number 2 is don't lose money, right? Or don't forget number 1.
Yeah.
What?
Don't forget number 1.
Yeah, which is don't lose money. So what happens is most people come in thinking about how much they can make, but professional investors like Warren Buffett and like you and I, we think about protecting our downside. And so while VC is long only, Bitcoin, I guess you could trade in and out of it. The Bitcoin Opportunity Fund allows us to lower risk and lower duration. So instead of a 7 to 10 year lockup, we have much shorter duration, much more liquidity, and we do that through a 70-30 hybrid model. So 70% private, 30% public. Those public investments that we do allow us to make yield and have lower risk and less duration. So for example, we could be long only in a bunch of deals and we could hedge our positions on the public side. We've been doing some sort of intricate type of financial arb trades and things like that. So we're already showing profits, which no VC fund can do. So we're already showing profits in the fund. We're lowering risk, we're lowering duration, and we're taking advantage of a lot of opportunities in the Bitcoin space that potentially these VC funds can't get into, like some of these mining deals that we've done, for example. So kind of going back to that oil and then the oil industry, if you will, imagine that. So we have Bitcoin is like oil. Bitcoin's an asset, but then there's an entire industry from tankers to drillers to rigs to drill heads to software to pipeline, right? And so the Bitcoin opportunity is massive, and we're able to invest through the entire ecosystem. A couple of deals that we've just recently done. Jack Dorsey and Luke Deshier, the Bitcoin core developer, just launched a new decentralized mining pool called Oceans. Mumblin. So we were one of the key investors into that deal. We've done another deal with Anchor Watch, which is cutting edge key security technology with insurance. So it's like an insurance play on Bitcoin. So those are a couple of deals that we've done, as well as a couple of mining plays.
Can you speak a little bit about the insurance? I've not heard this. The insurance play on Bitcoin. How does that work?
Yeah, so Anchor Watch is doing a new type of key security where, obviously, if you hold the key for your company and something happens to you, your company loses its treasury, right? And so they have this new key management software that allows you to create almost like an unlimited amount of keys with all types of rules. If this key doesn't get used in this amount of time, kill that key off, create a new key, hierarchy of keys. So if you had a board, the board could have the keys, certain keys could hold certain hierarchies over other ones. So almost unlimited amount of key management. And then they insure the Bitcoin. And so they're, I believe, working on trying to get a deal with Lloyd's of London to ensure that. But basically, your business, whatever, could have your part of your treasury holding in Bitcoin, and it could be insured. So if something were to happen to it, then you have insurance for that.
Very interesting. You said that's called Oceans?
No, that's Anchor Watch.
Anchor Watch.
Yeah.
See, I think that the future multi-sig custodian solutions, we have a long way to go, right? I think we're going to look back in 2 years and go, whoa, it's really changed. A little bit like, if I showed my 90-year-old mother my phone and said, hey, I've got 30,000 pieces of music on here, she'd be like, huh? What?
Right.
Where's the vinyl at? Where do you see this going, Mark? Where do you see the industry going, whether it's you, the opportunity fund, like you're a young man, you're what, 40, 41 years old?
Oh, I'm getting into my late 40s here, but yeah.
You're looking good, but you're young. Like, is this your career? Is this where do you feel like you've come home and this is going to be where you're going to spend a good part of your, really peak years?
I think so. Sort of like what Jack Dorsey said when he left Twitter. He said, "I'm going to go spend the rest of my life working on Bitcoin because it's the most important thing." I think that's sort of me. You know, I like being involved in the Bitcoin space. So, I work with and advise some Bitcoin companies, Trammell Venture Partners, now obviously with the fund as well. I'd like it to be. So, for the last several years, now 6-7 years, right? Creating content around it, speaking around it, investing in it as well. So those are sort of the things that I'm doing. I guess you could say I'm sort of at the peak of my career. I mean, I'm sort of at this, middle age kind of thing where, things are going pretty good. We're kind of doing big things. So I think so. Yeah. I mean, I want to. I think it's the most important thing that we have in the world. I think it's the most world-changing piece of technology that we've ever seen. Technology always changes the way the world works. And so I think this is it. And but more importantly, what it's changing is the balance of power between we the people and the governments. That's what it's doing. And so while it's cool that we had telephones, which I guess sort of changed the balance of power as well, we could say maybe each technology does. This one is massive for freedom. And so I have kids, and so one of the American US founding fathers, Thomas Paine, said, "If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, so my kids may know peace." And so, I got enough money, man. I'm old. I can just go disappear on a beach in Mexico and live a good life. I could ride it out. But what about my kids, man? What about my grandkids? And so this is what they need. So yeah, I think my plan is to, yes, continue working on it at the peak of my career.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're old though, dude. No, like I think a peak can last 20 years too, but
Sure.
you've learned like the lessons I've learned over my life, they're invaluable, losses and wins, and it makes me a better. I'm probably smarter. I'm probably a smarter investor and human being than I've ever been in my life, just because I've had enough mistakes and been able to acknowledge them. What do you think the biggest risk to this industry is, Mark? Like if you're an outsider coming in, whether you're 18, 22, or 72, and you're waking up to, oh, wow, we're digitizing planet Earth, where are the risks at?
I think the biggest risk to Bitcoin is regulation. And when I say that, let me just expand on that a little bit. Bitcoin cannot be stopped. A nation could say, the US could say, "Hey, if we catch you with Bitcoin, we'll kill you." They could say that. But there's the rest of the world. We can see that every war the US starts is a failure. So the war on poverty, we have more poverty. The war on obesity, we have more obesity. The war on drugs, we have more drugs. They can't stop drugs. They spend trillions of dollars trying to stop drugs. And drugs have to be, they're physical things, grown, cultivated, packaged, shipped, smuggled, distributed. And when they tell you not to do drugs, you don't want to do them. But how are they going to stop something completely digital? And when they tell you that you don't have a right to store your money in a way they can't steal from you, it sort of makes you want to do it. Like every time they talk about banning guns, gun sales go up. And so I think, regulation is that they can't stop it, but they could temporarily put a kind of brakes to it. And what we're seeing in Europe specifically coming down the pipe super, super fast. But even in the US, I think the attack vector right now isn't to make Bitcoin illegal. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's a very, very low chance we see that happening. So I'm not afraid of that. What I think the attack vector is right now is self-custody. And so I think, I don't just think Elizabeth Warren is leading the charge on this. She has a bill that she has put forward right now that could make custodying your, crypto assets illegal. And so probably the play they're gonna want to, and again, following the lead that's happening in Europe right now, they're doing the same thing, is try to push us into these exchange traded funds. And you can own Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not illegal. Go ahead, own Bitcoin, but own it through them. Own it through a qualified custodian, not individual custody. So I think that's probably the biggest risk. And when I say risk, again, it's not going to shut it down. What it would do is potentially slow down the adoption curve. It would slow down the adoption curve and the price appreciation. But we still have the rest of the world. 80% of Bitcoin transactions under $1,000 are being done in Africa, right? We have like El Salvador, we have potentially Argentina.
Is that a fact? 80%,
Yeah,
80%
of transactions under $1,000
done from Africa.
in Africa. Yeah, I mean, it was as of last year. I don't know if it's still accurate as of today. And so we still have the rest of the world. And so this is a global asset. And if you think about, remember, solutions coming to problems, the problem of unlimited money printing. There's three big central banks: the U.S., the ECB, and the BOJ. The BOJ and the ECB are full easing. The Fed is kind of stealth easing. There's more money printing ahead. I think that's pretty much a given. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there's more authoritarianism ahead. And so Bitcoin is the solution to both of those problems that don't seem to be going away. And so the risk is slowing down adoption, pushing the US further behind this game theory curve, if you will, as other nations move forward in it. It potentially slow it down. I think that's the biggest risk. The other big risk I would say would be the financialization of it, which kind of fits in with it, which is potentially setting up, massive futures trading markets where they're doing naked shorting on Bitcoin, the asset, just like they do with gold, to manipulate and suppress the price. That would be another thing.
Yeah, that's going to happen, right? There's already derivatives out there. That doesn't worry me a lot, because I've seen most every one of these trading desks at every major bank, including companies I've worked for before. They get out over their skis in a paper market and blow themselves up. Let's see what they do when you have to, in order to buy, let's see, 3,000 Bitcoin, you have to drive the price up $3, and that's just 3,000. I think there's going to be there. I think there's families here that are going to walk into this market, but my first entry is 1,000. Like, they're super, super, super wealthy families. I don't think anyone's done the math on what this 0.5% really has. And they're going to deploy $50 million like you and I deploy a $200 bet in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
$200 bet. They're like 20 million. Let's do another 20 million. Let's do another 20 million, because they have to do that in order to get their allocation to a point where it's even meaningful, right? They're not going to pay their lawyers, their professionals, millions of dollars a year, and keeping these books, setting the whole thing up, and not, really do something. At least I think this 0.5% to 1% is going to go to 8 to 10 so fast.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really extreme, but where else is it going to go, dude?
And I think there's some protections there that are unlike other markets. So, for example, we saw over 71% of the Bitcoin supply hasn't moved in over a year. So there's only about 30% that's freely being traded anyway. So how do these billionaires take these big positions, to your point? But I think the difference that probably could help protect Bitcoin versus these future markets, like what happens with gold, for example, is the transparency. Because now that we have on-chain data, we can see where the Bitcoin is, how much Bitcoin there is. So, for example, with the gold market, we don't know how many paper gold ounces there are to physical. Estimates are somewhere between 1 to 500. That's a pretty big range. That's a big range. And two, in futures markets, you really can't take delivery. Where do I take my uranium? How do I get my oil? And even how do I take delivery of, 10 million or $100 million worth of gold? You don't. But Bitcoin, it's just instant. And so, like, I want to custody my Bitcoin, unlike gold and oil or uranium. I can instantly take delivery of it with no cost. It doesn't cost me money to get a ton of gold shipped to me, or oil. And then the transparency. So the ease of custody, the ability to transfer in the blink of an eye, the zero cost of holding or transporting it, and then the transparency of the open ledger, I think will help defend against that.
Yeah. So when you talk about transparency, maybe it takes me to the whole CBDC conversation, which is really at top of mind 3 months ago, and then no one's really talking about it. There's still 108 countries working on CBDC.
Yeah,
you didn't mention those or that as a potential threat. And a lot of people got up in arms about this whole thing. We're going to be traced, tracked, monitored, surveilled. Well, that's going to happen whether Bitcoin's here or not. Okay, it's happening.
That's a threat to us as people and a threat to our freedom. It's not a threat to Bitcoin.
That's my point. They're not really correlated because they're already I have been in MasterCard's offices, buildings the size of, one office is the size of my entire home.
Yeah.
And literally a guy takes one of these guys, scrolls down like he's a military drone pilot and says, oh, let's go look at Broadway and Fifth Avenue. How much money has been spent in this little retailer? Dude, he just keeps drilling down into it like it's Google Earth. Oh, wow, there's the average transaction is $79.38, and there's been 1,300 of them in the last 12 minutes. The volume is up, the volume is down. There's a chargeback right there. It's amazing how much intel they already have, man. Yeah. Like really, really. And their ability to turn this off tomorrow morning or right this second is already at 100%. They do not need anything to turn us off. I wasted 2 years not buying Bitcoin on this stupid theory of, hey, what if the power goes out?
Right.
And I just needed a guy like you to go, dude, your credit cards won't be usable. Your wire transfer. I just didn't make the connection yet. I can be really, really stupid when I'm trying to find, okay, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. What if the power goes out? Bro, that's already a fact, okay? So CBDCs, do you see this as the big boogeyman? Or are they there's going to be 108 non-public blockchains, and then there'll be one.
So I think it is the big boogeyman. I think CBDCs is probably the greatest threat to human freedom in the world today. And it's sort of the final piece. There's two final pieces that they need to close the pin and lock us in, and that's digital IDs and CBDCs. Once those two pieces are there, which the G20 basically met a year ago and agreed to put this framework in. So it's already being developed. So digital IDs, and this is some of the things that scares me about Elon Musk, right? Trying to create this digital ID system on Twitter, on X, right? But the digital IDs and CBDCs is the single greatest threat that we face. And I'm afraid that once they get those two pieces in place, it could really prevent us from ever having another freedom revolution again. That being said, I don't think it's a threat to Bitcoin. As a matter of fact, I think it's a bonus. I think it helps Bitcoin adoption. Here's why. For whatever reason, to your point, a lot of us have these chains of false belief, as Tony Robbins would say, in our head. What happens if this happens? It's magic internet money. I can't touch it. What if the internet goes out? How do I know if I can trust my phone? All these things. Once we see them in a CBDC, once we're already using our phones and we're transferring digital credits around, we're going to take that as authority. We're going to believe it now. Okay, well, I guess this is what it is now. Now we're going to understand that Bitcoin is the same thing, but why does the CBDC continue to buy me less goods and services, but this Bitcoin buys me more goods and services? And so what it's going to do in technology, you sort of have this bell curve. It's called the diffusion of innovation. Everyone's seen it. In the beginning, you have the innovators, then you have the true believers, then there's a chasm. Then there's the early majority, late majority. So the chasm is where this mindset has to be crossed over. This chasm has to be crossed over. And this will really thrust it over that chasm where like, oh, I guess we're just all using these digital monies now. But Bitcoin offers me censorship resistance and immutability, and it buys me more. And so I think it's a bonus for Bitcoin, not a negative. And again, solutions coming to problems. Once the CBDCs come into place, people are going to realize they need a solution really, really bad, and they'll jump into it.
Yeah, that's my view. The CBDC will teach my 75-year-old sister that this is okay.
Yeah.
She'll become very comfortable with it, and then she gets to decide whether she wants to do the Bank of America deal or she wants to do, how about if I become my own bank? And I think once the wallets get much easier, hey, I'm going to become my own bank really becomes powerful. But we're a little ways away from that yet. I think we just got to make it easier. And maybe you're
talk about the easier just for a second though, right? So like, first of all, over 80% of all dollar transactions are digital anyway.
Correct.
I hate the CBDCs. As I said, I think it's the single greatest threat, but I don't really use much cash. I use my credit cards and debit cards, right? Like, and I do wire transfers. So I just don't use cash. So we're already using digital money. So that, and then I would say that in order to go onto your iPhone, into the App Store, download a Bitcoin wallet and receive Bitcoin and send and receive Bitcoin is almost identical to doing Venmo or PayPal, but about 10 times easier. So if you want to go download the Venmo app or the PayPal app, you got to go through this whole process of applications and submitting information and taking pictures of your passport and uploading documentation and blah, blah, blah. With Bitcoin, you don't do any of that. I just download it and I can send and receive. The process of sending and receiving, even the UI, the UX of the app is almost identical to Venmo. If I want to send, I have to put someone's address in there. If I want to receive, I give them my address. So I would say it's way easier than Venmo, PayPal right now. And maybe the 75-year-old people aren't really flocking to Venmo and PayPal, but that's like a generation thing. I would say it's pretty dang easy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, listen, I hear you. The question is, look, I have a wallet. I don't know why everybody's decided I'm not a self-custody guy. I've never even talked about how I do it. I think it would be I'd be an idiot to address any questions on this subject when 1,000 people are listening. Okay. So like that's just silly. Like this, we're talking about security. Having said that, the question is, would I put $50 million on one little wallet, right?
No, you should never. Don't do that.
See, that's the complexity of, okay, let me think through this thing. I also don't have people in America love somebody to sue. Okay. Like once I self-custody, I have given up my ability to sue anyone for anything. And I don't like to sue anyone. Like I hate that, but I think there's a lot of people. I'm just thinking through the process. There's a lot of people that's sitting in companies on charters and family offices to go, we want to sue Coinbase if they fuck up, right?
Yeah.
So look, I just personally think we're into an age where we're going through this transition. This is going to happen. I love the CBDCs because one, it's going to happen anyway. They're going to try to trap us again. They will lose. I think they lose. Okay. Over 1,000 years, we do have more freedom than we've ever had, at least the appearance of freedom. There's more things we can do. If they try to stop me from self-custody, I've done deals in gold before. One-on-one, dude. No problem. There's 50 million of us holding Bitcoin on wallets. I will find someone out there that can liquidate me in exchange for something else if I get illiquid. So I've been in these markets. If you were in 2008, there wasn't any fucking liquidity, dude. There was nobody saving anybody from anything. It was just, hey, you're on your own, dude.
Yeah.
Bye. And I think we're there right now. People talk about a 6 and 7% interest rate. Where is that money? Because I see 12, 15, and 18% interest rates. I do not see a bunch of money available to Joe Domestic for investing in his future. And this money seems to be the soundest money I've ever seen in my life, dude. It's done nothing but improve over a fairly reasonable, even if you remove the first 5 years. Like I just take out the first 5 years and go, okay, let's start in like 18. It's up like 600%. That's a decent period of time. And it should have been baked, cooked, and put away about 16 different times. That's, to me, the most impressive thing on this product. It has been attacked from every possible vector, man, except for EMPs going off at the same time. That's the only thing that hasn't happened so far.
A couple of things that you said there. So first of all, I would say, because you're old and you've made money in traditional business, you have a long-term time frame, which is good. We all should. Nothing good comes short. As a matter of fact, RIP Charlie Munger, the big money is not made in the buying and the selling. The big money is made in the waiting. That's what he said, right? Problem is today, everyone has this gamble culture where I need to make 200% in 7 days or it's no good kind of a thing. And so you're able to zoom out and look past Bitcoin's volatility and look at year over year, it's made new highs. Or the lower highs, I should say, right? And so most people focus on the volatility and like, oh my God, it's so risky. Where because you've built businesses, this is a 5-year cycle or a 10-year cycle. When I was developing real estate, these were 5-year deals. Like I'm cool waiting 3 to 5 years. So that's super helpful for you, right? And I think that's what it takes. The other thing I would say is to your point, it should have been put away. You said it should have been put away, half a dozen times or whatever it is, right? People compare it to like the tulip mania, right? But the tulip bull mania went up and it crashed. It never came back. And every time Bitcoin has been down 80 to 90%, it's come back and back and back and back. So a tulip mania crashes, a pump and dump, pumps and dumps, it never comes back, right? And so what's important, if you look at all the crypto assets and you price them in Bitcoin, so just go into TradingView and just put ETH/BTC or whatever your favorite crypto is, there's never been a crypto asset that's made a second all-time high priced in Bitcoin, except for one, Dogecoin. But that's because of Elon Musk manipulating the markets like he always does. But all the other ones, Ethereum, you name it, Cardano, whatever your favorite one is, they have never made a second all-time high, which basically means they're all sort of pump and dumps.
They're all tulips.
Yeah, tulips.
Yeah, tulips that have a shelf life of about, 10 days. Bitcoin has a shelf life, infinite shelf life. Like, find me a product that has an infinite shelf life. Fossil fuels, the only thing I know that has an infinite shelf life, and maybe gold. I can, like, at $300 crude oil, there'll be so much crude oil show up on this planet. Okay, we will be penalized for having gas in our own, human system, because there'll be so much energy at $300. This is why you see a $60 market, $60, $60, always $60. Yeah. And it's never going to go to 150 or 300. And if it does, it'll go there because we have a war, and it'll be there for 3 days, and then it'll get crushed again to 30. Like, they will be able to find energy forever. At $30, what did we learn? We learned how to frack.
Right.
We didn't learn how to frack at 300 or 180. We learned how to frack when the price was down, because innovation showed up, because people that drill holes in the ground, guess what they do? They drill holes in the ground. And right. Bitcoin miners are going to be Bitcoin miners forever until they just can't. Right now, I look at this opportunity. I feel blessed, dude. I feel blessed to have had a career in disruptive environments, and it's so easy for me to see this. Like, I have moved everything. I will not look at any analog deals anymore. I'm so excited about this industry. And I'm 65. I don't, like when you said, hey, you're old. I call it, hey, I got some wisdom and experience now. And I get to surround myself with a bunch of younger people like yourself. And that's kind of where I'd like to transition this conversation, because to me, it's not all about just investing in Bitcoin and making money. This industry offers an opportunity to millions of people that they're not required to have a college education. They don't need to understand blockchain. All you have to do is have a good heart, work hard. A million people could be employed tomorrow morning in this industry. I can hire 10 people tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they have to be willing to scratch their mind, start studying some stuff, study AI, study Bitcoin, study digital assets, etc. And there's a lot of teachers here. So I've never seen a period in time where an 18-year-old, 28-year-old, 68-year-old person with very little capital can come in an industry, make a difference, and play a role, and be purposeful for the next 10 or 15 years of their life. Because for me, that's the real deal, dude. Hanging out with cool people that I like. Maybe we disagree sometimes, but we have a purpose.
Yeah.
For me, that's the greatest value a human being can play in their life. Because when I have a purpose, I'm happy. It doesn't matter how many Bitcoin I have, right?
Yeah. I love what you just said there. So, like, young people could come in and kind of build their career here. So when you look at each of these technological revolutions that we've talked about, not only do they change the course of humanity because we have new sets of building blocks, they also drive financial markets. So the last 50 years has been dominated by telecom, internet, computers, right? The 50 years before that was dominated by Ford, GM, GE. Before that, it was trains, steel, oil, right? And so this is the next revolution. And so this is the entry point that people would want to build their career on, because the next 50 years will be dominated by this. And so I think that's a super important point for anybody to kind of hone in on. And the other thing I would say is that when you go to, like, the Bitcoin conference, for example, you notice that, like, mainstream media wants to tell us that we align on identity politics now. Oh, you're black, you're white, you're woman, male, gay, straight, whatever it is, right? But that's not how we align. We align on values. And so, I hang out with black, white, female, whatever, right? It doesn't matter as long as we can have these shared values on certain things. And then I think there's values that have hierarchies. And so I think like freedom is probably one of the highest values that we can have. So when you go to the Bitcoin conference, you have everybody there, black, white, straight, female, male, whatever, but everyone's there on a shared value of like freedom. And like the energy, the vibration, if you will, is so high at an event like that. So to your point, we get to hang out with really cool people that are really doing things that are really changing the world. And we're in this growing space. And so one thing I've learned through my career, I'm sure you have as well, is that if you can jump into, you know, the rising tide, rising all boats, if you can jump into a fast growing market and just be average, you can be pretty dang good. And so shout out to all these younger people, like definitely think about planting your flag in the space.
Yeah, I've never seen a space like it. Like you literally, and I don't think it's just the young people. It's to the 45-year-old that's stuck in that job. He's there for the 401k. He's been working at Oxy. He doesn't really like it. He's not really adding value. Take your 401k, man. Put some money to work in this space. Start learning it. There's so many requirements. Like I need analysts. I need quant guys. I need business development people. I need, people that know how to write. I mean, people that know how to learn. There's just tremendous opportunities. But what I don't need is a bunch of gamblers around me. Okay, I'm gonna get rich on this coin, that coin. Hey, let's go build something. Okay, you're gonna be able to build businesses here that are needed and wanted to bridge the old world into this new world. Where do you see, and then we'll start wrapping up here. Where do you see the ETF? I think that's an exciting moment in time. Yeah. Let's talk about maybe the ETF and the halving. And is this a kind of a different time than you've been around before, where you have two major events occurring? One, we've never seen like the likes of this before. Trying to seed an ETF on a blockchain, on a public blockchain. I don't think this has ever been accomplished or seen before. I suspect there's a lot of deals being done to precede the ETF through ownership in the ETF itself. That makes sense to me. But let's talk a little bit about the ETF and your prediction on it, and then the halving and its relevance this year.
So I think we've never seen it before. We've seen it before. We've seen everything before. One, we can look at when ETFs were launched on gold, but I think just back to Bitcoin specifically, I remember 2017 was the year the institutions were coming. The institutions are coming. The institutions are coming. And we launched futures. And so that was CME, launched the futures. And so we had that buildup. And so it's not exactly ETFs, but like we've seen the rise of the trading, gambling, whatever, casino financialization of Bitcoin with the institutional players coming in through futures back in 2017. And so we're seeing the same thing. It's just different. I think it's different for a couple of reasons. One, obviously futures, there's a little bit more of like institutional players play in that market. You don't typically have mom and pop in their 401k buying those. So this, I think, going into an ETF, kind of into an equity, opens it up to way more people. So I think that's pretty big. So we've been hearing about the institutions are coming for a long time, but I think this is the next step. It's obviously a bigger step. And I think it will be a very long-term catalyst. But I spend my time talking about the macro environment and prices, and the financial system is very complex. It's so complex, most people don't even understand it. I don't even understand it completely. Maybe there's like 3 people that understand the plumbing of the reverse repos and all that. Zoltan Pozar probably. But at the end of the day, prices is the equilibrium of supply and demand. That's all you need to know, man. Right. And so the ETFs are a massive catalyst for demand, and we have a finite supply. And so from that perspective, every time, like 2017, okay, institutions are coming, okay, futures are coming, now ETFs are coming, and we'll continue to see that. Next, we're going to see sovereigns. You talked about the sovereigns with the oil market. Next, we'll see the sovereigns play. So we're going to continue to ratchet up and get bigger and bigger entrants. And this is sort of just that next logical step, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So
you want to talk about the launch, though, the potential launch?
Yeah. We're January. Do you think it's post halving?
The odds are it happens by January. That's sort of what the betting markets are showing. Obviously, nobody knows. I think there's a couple telling signs that the smart people are paying attention to. And so what are those? As I was kind of saying before, I don't know if that was before we were recording or not. I think, and lots of other smart people think, that it probably won't be one ETF approved. There's probably 4 or 5 at least, maybe up to 6 that get approved at one time. How do we know which ones those will be? Well, for sure, it'll be BlackRock. They're basically a semi quasi arm of the Fed, right? So for sure them. But what you can do is look at who are sort of using the same platform. So everyone's using Coinbase for custody, for example. But what you can also see is which ones of these keep going back for meetings with the SEC. And so like right now, the meetings between a few of these ETFs and the SEC are really starting to pick up steam. And so typically you've done enough business deals, Gary, you know that as the deal is getting close to being closed, the meeting and frequency picks up because you're making all the last fine-tune adjustments. So sort of looking at the meeting and the increase in the frequency leads me to think that it's coming pretty soon. And I think there's going to be 4 to 6 that get approved at one time. That's what I think. I do think I made a video yesterday. It hasn't come out yet. It'll come out anyway, but by the time this recording will be out. Talking about
give us a heads up, man. Give us
well, talking about the danger of this ETF being approved. And I think, unfortunately, I think it could very well be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Now, I do believe it's a massive long-term catalyst, as we already discussed. I think it's going to create massive demand, not just in the next couple of weeks or months when it gets approved, but for the next years and decades, right? And we can see that back to like gold ETFs, for example. But I think this could be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event because everybody's trying to front run this. And so it's attracting a lot of capital coming in to buy this. And I think as soon as it gets launched, we might see a little uptick, a little sugar rush, and then potentially we'll see a sell-off because we're attracting a lot of traders. There's a difference of the short-term sort of speculative traders and the long-term hodlers. 70% is held by them. But we have, whenever the price runs up, we bring in the speculators. And these guys, a lot of these institutions, I mean, they're cool making 5 or 10%. They want to buy it. They're going to put in a bunch of money. And as soon as it pops up, they'll sell it. And they're going to show 20%, 30% gain at the end of the year for their fund. They're going to look like heroes. They don't freaking care about the price, right? So I think we could see this buy the rumor, sell the news and a sell-off event. And what I'm trying to warn people is that this could probably come, and I'll explain why I think that could come. That's one of the reasons. The second reason why I think it could come is a lot of people think as soon as the ETF gets approved, that's the starting line. The gun goes off and everyone starts running. And these ETFs, people are going to start buying the ETFs, and then the ETFs are going to go out and buy the Bitcoin. But that's not how it works. The ETFs have already been buying the Bitcoin, which is part of the reason why we've been seeing this massive demand and this build up in the price. You referenced it earlier, seeding their accounts, these buffer accounts, whatever you want to call them. And so these ETFs have already been buying Bitcoin.
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
I'd like to drill down if you got a few minutes. So
Yeah.
are you sure that they've been buying in the open market? Like they've been, because the question would be, what are they buying it for? If an entity, the ETF, let's just call that an organism 1, has not been farmed and it hasn't been approved by the government, what is there to put into it?
Yeah. So obviously BlackRock, for example, and all these funds for have multiple entities and multiple funds and have multiple investments and lots of things. Obviously, BlackRock's the largest asset manager in the world. So they're using a separate account, a separate entity, and they've been buying Bitcoin for quite a while. And they've probably been averaging in since it was $20,000. So maybe their blended cost, I mean, who knows, right? Maybe their blended cost is 25K.
Your theory is that BlackRock would take their shareholders, put 1 million Bitcoin into the ETF and take the risk of the ETF not being approved.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And what they'll do is, so let's say their blended cost is 25K on that. When they move it into the fund, it'll move in at market price, right? So then there will be that spread. So now they'll have this buyer. But come on, Gary, like, you don't think BlackRock knows their ETF is going to get approved?
Well, no, I it's a more nuance for me. I don't think there's a legal entity there to fill. And I think the other piece of this is that the industry, and you didn't say this, but the industry keeps talking about BlackRock or anyone having they're going to front run. It's like, they actually will not enjoy any of the benefits of front running. They're going to just buy the market. They don't care.
No. They can't buy the market
Well, no,
because
no, no, no. All they have to do is be able to say, "Hey, I bought this bag and it was at market." They don't care if it's 10 million or $1. Like they're not. I don't think the ETF's going to be able to front run itself.
No, it can't. And that's what that's what I'm saying. So they're buying it through another entity. So that other entity has bought it at a whatever cost they've got it at an average cost, 25K, let's say. But when the ETF gets approved on January 1st, for example, the ETF will buy the Bitcoin from their other entity at market price.
Yeah.
Because what happens is on an ETF today, I buy some, tomorrow you buy some, the next day grandma buys some, and they have to constantly be buying, selling daily. They can't be in the market every day. That in this thinly traded market, they're going to move the price all over. This is one of the concerns that Gary Gensler has had, why supposedly he's been saying he's been holding off this ETF for so long, because he wasn't sure on the pricing and how the pricing would work. Because if they're in there buying every day, it's going to cause the price to go all over the place. So they're using these buffer accounts. Yes, the ETF has not front run the price. And yes, the ETF will pay market price when they buy it, but they're buying it from an entity that's a buffer to the market. That buffer account will be actively trading in the market. They'll be buying at the bottom, buying at the top. They'll be working to not move markets, OTC buying, et cetera. The ETF will be buying in and out of that account at market price.
Yeah.
This is as it was explained to me at dinner with one of the biggest ETF operators in the space, some of the banking regulators that were there, and so forth. This is how they explained how it works. I've never launched an ETF, so personally, I can't really say from.
Maybe we could have an off the record conversation about it. But I see one of the things I thought was, and I've been involved in these, where you're okay on April the 1st, we have a new clearing market and these are the rules. Whatever happened yesterday, the rules have changed.
Right.
Nuclear power industry in the UK went bankrupt, dude. Like within months of launching a change. And the energy minister asked me, her name was Dr. Eileen Marshall. She's like, "Hey, Gary, will this work?" And I said, "Dude, it's going to work so good. It's going to be perfect. Unless you knee jerk. And if you knee jerk, okay, that's what I'm scared of." And she looked at me and went, "Oh, Gary, you're so over the top." Dude, 3 months later, nuclear power industry went bankrupt. Now, what's interesting about that, not 1 kilowatt stopped. All the kilowatts kept moving. Everybody got their energy. We just changed who was the owners of that investment and at what entry price and what exit price. So
right.
If I was BlackRock, and Grayscale does not have to do this, I would go to the Anthony Scaramucci's of the world and go, "Hey, how many Bitcoin do you have? I'll sell you a seat, but I want Bitcoin. I don't want cash." And I think this is the cash conversation that Gensler's having, because I actually think we're going to see more volatility than we have ever seen in Bitcoin because of this ETF. Because I don't think it's fascinating to me. So many smart guys, like, we cannot drill down and say exactly this is how the seed is working. We don't. Nobody knows, and that's a big old mystery there.
Except for one of the ETF guys that I talked to. Like I said, he does run ETF, so he's kind of got a little inside seat. But I do agree that we'll have massive volatility. And so what I think we're seeing this massive run up. I think we might see another initial spike and then a sell off, which I think is going to be a buying opportunity. And then we're going to blast off to the moon. So it's going to be go up faster, down, and then back up. So that's that volatility you speak of. And basically my warning is like, hey, when you see this potentially sell off, don't get shaken out of your position. That was sort of my warning. Not like don't buy. It's like, hey, just know that this could happen, and this is going to shake out the weak hands. Don't be one of them, and instead be a buyer.
Do you see that happening before the halving? And then if so, what happened post halving?
Yeah. Okay. So that was on the ETF. So the consensus seems to be
kind of related, right? Because they're like,
none of us have an inside track on this. I kind of know some insiders who hear whispers, and for some of the reasons I've told you, it looks like it's coming soon. So maybe by January. The halving obviously is next year, right? Well, a few months later, right? 4 months later. If I haven't really thought about this, if I'm thinking out loud, I mean, you would think Gensler would probably want the ETFs to launch before the halving, because you would want to see the massive demand while there's still more supply. If you are Gary Gensler and you really are concerned about the price and the volatility, then you would certainly want it to happen before the halving, not after.
I personally would love for a delay post-May, man.
Yeah.
I think I would crush it. It gives me longer time to fill my bags.
Yeah.
Actually, not filling my bags. My bags are filled. What I need time, though, to be able to liquidate fiat bullshit assets. They're never going to grow from here. They're not going to grow. I need time. People keep thinking rich people all have bags of money just sitting around waiting to be deployed. You need this time. People shouldn't get rushed. They should slow this down. Let it.
Gary, you've had 10 years, man.
Well, but no, I didn't have 10 years.
I'm kidding.
But see, that's, I think that kind of, I didn't have 10 years because I would never have deployed the type of capital I'm deploying today based on what I knew 10 years ago. I wasn't.
Yeah, bingo.
I wasn't smart enough, man. And quite frankly,
no one was.
And there's a lot of fucking noise in this market, dude. Like if I have a friend that bought Bitcoin at $7, she agrees with me. At 47, it's a better trade today.
I say the same thing. I started buying at 300, and it's a better risk-adjusted return today because almost all the risk has been taken out of the market.
I totally agree with that, man. Well, listen, I think that how can you end on a better moment than to say this is the best risk-adjusted entry point into what I think is going to be a multi-decade window of change into digitizing planet Earth. If we believe that, you're going to need Bitcoin. I think I'm going to have robots trading money with you and Satoshi's, dude, with your robot, right? And that'll happen in 2 years.
I know that's a high point to end it on, but I do want to say NASDAQ did a report and it said that 71% of financial advisors said once an ETF is approved, they would have their clients buy Bitcoin. 71%. So the other thing that we know is that, I mean, they're starving for alpha anywhere they can get it, right? And look at what happened with this AI bump over the last year. And that sort of gives us a window. So if you look at what happened with the AI, you look at this report, then you have the halving, then you have this ETF. The ETF doesn't happen immediately. It takes time for the word to trickle down to all the financial advisors, for them to meet with their clients on a quarterly basis. But I think over the year, next year or two, I mean, it's going to put massive, massive demand on the price.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come because the little secret that most people don't really appreciate is Wall Street, investors don't buy stuff. They're sold these tools. Wall Street's going to sell ETFs. I think my sister will have Bitcoin in her 401k, not even know it, dude.
Right.
They will never call her and ask her. They're just going to make the allocation.
Yep.
So this is a really exciting time to be alive in a great industry. I really appreciate your contributions. Mark, where can people follow you? Why don't we go through the list? Because you got a lot of stuff going on. You're definitely somebody that can be gotten, but like all the stuff you're involved in.
So as we're talking, Bitcoin just overtook Meta for now becoming the 8th most valuable asset in the world by market cap. Meta's at 822. Bitcoin is now sitting at 852. Boom.
You know the difference between those two entities, huh? Bitcoin will be around 10 years.
Yeah. I love that you said infinite earlier. I just finished reading The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and I'm writing a paper on Bitcoin and the infinite game. So that'll be coming out soon. Where can they find me? Unfortunately, you can't find me on Twitter right now because I've been locked out of my account for 4 months. A hacker got in, set my 2FA, changed my 2FA, and they keep charging me every month as a blue check, and they won't just reply to my email and get me back in my account. So I'm not on Twitter right now. It's a big pain in the ass, man. I feel lost in the world. Find me on YouTube, Mark Moss. Go to my website, onemarkmoss.com. Everything's linked there, but YouTube, Mark Moss. And then the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, if you're interested in figuring out how you can get involved in that.
Dude, you're awesome. Thank you so much. It's been good to get to know you. I hope to get to know you better. I know we run into each other and we don't really ever have enough time to spend over a drink or dinner, but I would really like to do that the next time we're all together. And I'm here to help the industry. I'm not here to harm or doesn't mean I may not make mistakes, but I will make mistakes because I'm actually pulling the trigger on some things. But I love the industry and I love the intellectual capital and the heart capital. So it means a lot to me. I thank you very much. And I know the people that follow me should follow you. And they should probably follow all the guys that are around you because you got a good crew of really smart people. So thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Sir.